want to become a producer of new work, and when was that?
It was a long time ago now. So it was about 18 years ago. And I was in Boston and I was seeing a lot of contemporary theater work and a lot of experimental theater work, and then seeing opera. And I also was a singer at that point, so being in projects as well. But feeling like I was really interested in creating, helping to create a new canon of repertoire that was really focused on living composers telling the stories of our time. And so that was kind of the first impulse, and wanting it to kind of be smaller scale chamber pieces where you're really on top of the work and having a chance to feel the intimacy with the artists, in the same way that I was seeing this kind of avant-garde theater at the time. And that led me to deciding that I wanted to start my own company and to really try to make a go at changing the field, and changing the repertoire in the field as well.
So one of the things I love about you as a collaborator is that you're fearless and that you're always looking for something different as a producer, something that doesn't exist, or that that you really articulate as something that needs to be heard. Can you define what that is for you? That that difference that you look for in the artist and the art that you're passionate about?
Yeah, well, it's also you and I have done so many projects together, and this is, so much also like what I'm going to say encapsulates you as well, which is I'm looking for singular voices. I'm looking for artists that sound like no one except for themselves. I'm looking for fearless artists who are willing to go on a journey with me, and that we do that together and really kind of find, and I go on a journey with them, and that we find together what the piece is, and that process is such an invigorating one, and the thing that gets me up in the morning.
You live for it. Let's break down a little bit about how you did form your company and really decide to do your own thing, and what some of those hurdles that you had to overcome were.
Well, the biggest hurdle was moving to New York City and not knowing really anybody and not having any money to start the company. And so that was, making that decision was probably the most courageous decision that I made. Who knows if I would make that decision again, knowing how hard it has been. I
You
don't
don't
know.
have to. That's a good thing.
But yeah, I mean, that was part of it. The other part is, for the first 6 years of the company's 15 years old now. For the first 6 years, it was really just me. And that's a very lonely thing. It's lonely, not having somebody to bounce ideas off of. It's lonely, not having somebody to console me when, some catastrophe happened. Is lonely the really late nights up, where I was hashing through budgets and not knowing, exactly how I was going to fundraise for the projects, and just feeling that kind of constant pressure. Things are much better now that I have a staff, and a partner in, my executive director, Jecka Berry. And so it's not so lonely anymore. And that's the great thing of where we are now.
And not just as staff, all these incredible outposts where you're able to really kind of partner and do incredible work, which I admire so much. I'm curious, you've been part of the creation of two Pulitzer Prize winning works, and you've been through all the ups and downs with all of us composers and artists. And I'm curious, what defines success for you, like a successful collaboration?
Yeah, I mean, the first answer to that is, was I able to give the composer and librettist that I'm working with, a production that was in their minds, which is the production that they feel proud of, even if they didn't know what it was going to be, that they were involved through the whole process eventually. And sorry, let me start that again. Good. Time out. Let's do that one again. Okay. So the first answer to that is if I've been able to give the composer and the librettist the production of their dreams, and that they've been in every single part of that process getting to world premiere. that's step one. And when that happens and the composer and librettist are happy and feel that, yes, this is the world premiere, there's nothing better for me than that. Of course, I want to have good press. Of course, I want the critics to say they loved it. And, oftentimes they do, and sometimes they don't. And so you never really know honestly, you never really know how it's going to go. But, having the feedback also from the artists, the presenters that were in the venues of is deeply important to me, that the presenters feel proud of the work, that my board, my staff, my donors feel like very proud of what's on the stage. So there's a lot of measures of success, I think, but because we're an artist-led company, it's so important to me that the artists involved, all of them, not just the composer and librettist, but also the director and the music director and the designers, that everyone feels really proud of the work and that they've been given the playing field to experiment and to develop the work over time, so that they feel like they have worked towards this eventual outcome, and so there aren't really any surprises, and that we've come to a place where everyone feels really good.
And getting to really the word opera, which can mean something different for so many people, and which I think the work that BMP has produced and commissioned has done a lot in terms of expanding the notion of what opera is. Do you still have frustrations in terms of the way that opera is defined, created, and sold?
Sometimes, yes. I mean, I feel like the word opera still carries a connotation that sometimes isn't at all what we're doing. Still it feels like, and maybe it's people, it is people outside of the industry, but we're constantly looking for that new audience, for, who can we bring into this art form that doesn't know it. And when you talk to those people, their idea of opera is still, the woman with the horns from Wagner, and very large singers and people that aren't, really, sort of just standing there and delivering. And that's not what we do at BMP. Like, we're looking to be so deeply theatrical with every aspect of the performance. And the singers that we work with are just so extraordinary. They're extraordinary actors. They're incredible singers, of course. But that word, from the very beginning, I felt that word was a little bit of a barrier to bringing in new people. And so I actually started calling what we were doing opera theater. So it's like opera-theater. And that, to me, what I wanted to do with that was really just to say, it's not your usual opera. And even if you don't know what an opera theater piece is, which you probably don't because I just made that word up, at least you're kind of knocked off of your expectation of what that will be. So you arrive at the theater with an open mind and without an expectation. And that's where we feel we can, do the most important work.
Right. And speaking of important work, one of the things that I think your company does really well is really go in tandem with the composer or artist to dive into potentially tough themes. Everything from disability awareness and social impact, to your incredible work with Duyun and human trafficking. Um, Talk a little bit about the role of social impact in your company and what it's doing right now, in this constantly evolving and shifting world, to address some of our pressing issues.
Yeah, I mean, from the beginning of the company, it's always been important to me to tell the stories of our time, and to work with artists who are interested in that as well. And it feels important to use this incredible means of storytelling, right? Opera, music, theater, all of these things coming together in this, one art form, to use this art form to really change minds and hearts, about issues, bring certain things to the foreground, things that people may not have otherwise been thinking about, but then when they're sort of hit by it through music and theater, it hits on an emotional level. And so we have a real opportunity to do work that is important work. And I don't want to, like, we're not doing brain surgery either, so I don't want to, like, overstate it, but it is important to tell the stories of our time, and it is important to delve into issues that might be uncomfortable. We're doing a project now which is truly, like, we've been doing socially conscious work from the beginning. This piece that I'm going to talk about is really our first step into social justice work. And this is a project about mass incarceration. It's a project that is being created with two men who were formerly incarcerated. They were wrongly accused as children and put in prison for life sentences. They are now out for a variety of different reasons. But telling their story, telling the story of their incarceration is something that we will tell in the ways that we normally do in presenting houses and opera houses. And then we're also going to take a version of that into the prisons and to listen, as much as we are going to present is to listen. And I think that that's a really important thing right now. The one thing that I think is really fortunate for BMP is that we're a company that only does new work. And so we don't have the responsibility of putting on the traditional canon, which is completely done by white males, and white males from Europe mostly, as well. And so we don't have that responsibility to do that work. And so we can work with, we only work with living composers, and we work with a really diverse group of composers as well. And that's something that's extremely important to us and extremely important to me as we chart the future as well, is to really, hopefully be able to be a leader in that respect.
What have been some of your happiest moments as a producer?
Oh gosh, every opening night is a happiest moment, because it takes everything to get there. That. So we've held hands so many times on your opening nights, and you never really know what's going to happen because it's live. But that joy of the proverbial curtain going up. We don't tend to have curtains that go up, but the lights going on and the band starting, if you will. Yeah, it's hard to really pull out. I mean, obviously, it's incredibly exciting and gratifying that we birthed two Pulitzer operas. I mean, I never considered that could be possible, quite frankly. And so deeply proud of that. But I'm deeply proud of every single project that we've done and the creative journeys that we've gone on with composers like you and the other composers that we work with. I mean, it's such a gift and such a privilege to be able to do this work with such exceptional composers and artists.
I think also one of the things that you're just starting, because I think one of the things that's really hard for a bunch of younger composers is that they don't have producers who can really help these visions, as crazy as they are, come to life. Can you talk a little bit about what you're doing to address that?
Yeah, I mean, fostering the next generation is so important to BMP. We're putting such a focus on that. This year, through COVID-19 and all of the cancellations of our tours, in the spring we lost 10 tours. We're now in the process of losing everything this year as well. We really, decided we've been wanting to create a producers academy for a while, and now all of a sudden we have the time and the space to do it, and so we're doing it, and we're in our second cohort, and it's really about really, hopefully, a service to the industry that we're actually training young producers. There aren't enough of us, and it's such a joy to work with these people who are incredible. Some of them running their own companies and just interested in BMP's model, which is different, and really wanting to be creative producers and what that means to be a creative producer. So it's been such a joy, and we'll have many other things rolling out this year from the Academy. We also have our program Next Gen, which you know very well because we partnered with National Sawdust on it. And Next Gen is really our way of focusing on young composers and finding who are the composers that we want to work with over the next 5 or 10 years, if you will. And so it's essentially a composers competition that we choose 10 from the submissions that have come in from those 10, we then choose two, and we commission 30-minute vocal works. And from those two, we then commission a full evening work. And it's been incredible, and we've learned so much and have had such an extraordinary group of people applying for this. And so that focus on the next generation is really a huge part of what we're doing. We also just announced a new partnership with Music Academy of the West, and we'll be in residence there for 4 weeks with their Vocal Institute. And so excited again to be working with students and to really have the opportunity to hopefully, make a difference in their development over time.
I'm sure you will. That commitment, tenacity, and resilience is trademark BMP. Last question. 2020 is a year of reckoning for all of us. Has anything good come out of 2020, and something that we can look forward, or how might 2021 be better?
I think so much has come out that's good. Actually, I mean, it's, at the very beginning, I kind of was feeling like, what, this may be the best thing that could happen to the industry. I don't know that I'm feeling that way now, because there's so many artists that are out of work, and it's just heartbreaking. The reason why I thought it might be the best thing to happen is because it's making companies who maybe have just kind of been, coasting along, it's making them really reckon with thinking creatively outside of the box, and how do we bring our art form to an audience that will find meaning in it when we can't gather in theaters. And so BMP kind of immediately started sharing work online. We then immediately started commissioning artists to do digital work. As I said, we started the Producers Academy, which has been a big part of it. And I think, everyone's learning. I have to say, I am just astonished by the creativity of the field right now. People doing operas in carnival tents, people doing operas at drive-in movie theaters, people creating wonderful work online. So I think the creativity of the industry really has risen to meet this challenge, and I think the industry needed that. So in that regard, I think it's something we could only have ever hoped for. But as I said, like, the fact that so many artists are just suffering right now is actually one of the things that keeps me up at night, and really pains me. And BMP is just trying to do what we can, fiscally responsibly to where we are in this moment with very little income, to put money in artists' pockets, and to commission work, and to make sure that, people can pay their rent, and been trying to very much listen in our community to who's really suffering, and then to hire them to do something, so that it's not going to feel like a handout, just hiring them to do what they do incredibly well, and help them to pay the rent that month. On a personal level, I've gotten to spend a lot of time with my husband and with my parents, and that's something that's been such a joy, because I'm generally traveling every week. That's how my life has been for the last many years, where I'm basically on a plane every week to somewhere else where we're touring. And it's been personally very good to just be quiet, and to have time with the people who I love the most, and to have time with my parents, at their age, has just been something that's been so special.
It's a gift. Well, congratulations. We all love you, and I'm so happy for you.
Thank you.